I don't know it. I think it's in the reading list that I must have sent you 4 weeks ago. Okay, econometrica 90. Right? What's the basic idea? The basic idea is time is continuous, and the way we are gonna keep track of time is by indexing it with innovations, right? There is only one dimension along which innovation can evolve. It's like technologies, okay? And the technologies are indexed by tau, not by t. So in fact, this is continuous time tau, and t, 1, 2, 3 are the technologies. In the abstract, technologies will arrive, okay, as Poisson in a sequential order. So when technology T is available, it's possible to get T plus 1. When T plus 1 is available, it's possible to get T plus 2. In this order. It's not possible to jump, going backward, none of that, okay? And so because they arrive with a Poisson process, which we will see later what the variable mean, but the Poisson process has the parameter lambda, phi, and phi has 2 arguments, okay? T equal 1 could be this, and T equal 2 could be this, much shorter, and T equal 3 could be this, and so on, okay? There's no reason for the time units, for the time interval in which we periodize the continuous time to be of identical length in clock time. All right.
Actually, in a sense, the length of the period is in volumes.
We'll see. We'll see that when we put the variables, right? So in the abstract, that's the way it is, okay? Now, what's the idea? The idea is that innovations are not coming from the sky, but are coming from some effort. And the effort requires employing a certain number of specialized workers, okay? We call the specialized worker with the symbol
specialized are R.
Specialized is R, right? Yes. And the NT are the role.
M are the unskilled.
The unskilled, right?
And then the skilled.
Right. The skilled are all employed there, and the unskilled can be employed both. Right. That's one of the artificial aspects of the model, so we'll get to that later when we think about why that's there. But in fact, to tell the truth, the dynamic of the model is just entertaining, but of absolute no relevance to the message. Okay? In fact, the dynamic of the model is somewhat funny because it tends to have very counterintuitive and counterfactual predictions. So this is very often the case when people try to push an idea. You try to write down a model, a formal model that is somewhat simple and also fits with the debate of the time and the techniques of the time. And this is very dated. The dynamics underlying the NT variables, which is basically the level of employment in the production of the final good, intermediate final good, and research it's just not very. You shouldn't waste your time trying to understand that. It's a very secondary thing. What's the main message? The main message is that this passage from 1 into 2, from 2 into 3, and so on, in general from t into t plus 1, is driven by the desire of people to control the technology T, to be the monopolist of technology T, and therefore earn monopoly profits. Okay? That's the key message of the model. And the message is very simple. To the extent that during period T, you are in control of technology T, you earn monopoly profit. That's what in the previous period led you to try to make research invest in R&D and make efforts to obtain technology T. Okay? So it's the expectation of future profit. That's fine. There is a sense in which I invite you to think a moment of this. In general, people innovate in the expectation of future profits. Do only monopolies make profits? In the economic sense, clearly not, right? We understand perfectly, and I'll get to that in a moment to introduce a different point of view more general, that people make profits purely out of the fact that there is a certain degree of scarcity. The sum factor is a fixed supply, right? Ricardian land made a lot of profits, right? It was in some sense a monopoly. It's very ambiguous. These are notions that, right, in economics one has to be very careful in the use of words. Think about perfectly homogeneous objects, right? So per se, being perfectly homogeneous object, they're perfect substitute. And there is a finite quantity of them, Q. Why? Because so far we have produced Q, right? Takes time to produce, takes other resources, right? But they are perfect competitor, one with the other, perfect substitute. In fact, if you want to be elegant mathematically, we can think that this quantity Q is a measure, so it's not Q in the sense of 3,622,000. It's Q in the sense of quantity Q of which there is an infinity inside, like real number Q. Q equals 3, but inside it's measure 3, so there is a continuum of these objects, right? Very good. That's perfect competition. It's very obvious that each one of them is in the hand of one of us, and there is demand out there, and the demand is such, right, that a tree, that's quantity, the price is this, and that price is above the average cost, average, not even marginal, average cost of producing tree, then these are profits for everybody in fact. And if the average costs are like this, well then the profits become like that. Or, you know, we can even put the long run, as long as it's like that, it's still true that the inframarginal, that's Ricardo, the inframarginal guys make profit. So the source of what we call economic profits has to be looked at very carefully. Okay? And it's too much of a shortcut analytically to think, oh, only monopoly gives me profit. You understand where it comes analytically, this shortcut? It comes from the incredibly bad habit. Incredibly bad. This is one of the things in which the critics of so-called neoclassical economics, I call it Mickey Mouse economics, are right. Which is, because in class, at the beginning, when you're undergrad, you teach the simple thing. And the simple thing to understand, for example, is long-run equilibrium, zero profit, marginal cost, equal price, blah, 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 because that's very elementary and it captures the intuition. Then when you turn that into the rule, instead of just a initial approximation, then you get into a strange, absurd world in which competition means zero profits all the time. Right? Price equal marginal cost all the time. Not at all. We'll go back to this in the second part of the lecture. Okay? So let's keep it in mind, because otherwise we get all confused by the theory. So what instead and all this literature does is say, oh, in order to have profits, these people need to have a monopoly. So they're monopolists. Then the rest becomes all simple, right? It becomes very simple. I'm a monopolist, I control technology T. Technology T is more productive than technology T minus 1 because the productivity parameter in the production function is this. And AT has the usual, let's call it solo form with gamma larger than 1. Alright? So if I control technology T, I am more productive of anybody controlling technology T minus 1, correct? Is that clear? Then it's obvious that I become a monopolist, because if I am the only one that can control that technology and nobody can use it, given that everything else is the same, we produce the same good, we hire the same factors, there is no restriction to my capacity. Let's look at that, right? So I control T, and I can hire all the workers to produce. Think about it. This is Apple. I control the best technology to make phones. What do? I take over the whole market for smartphones, because I hire all the workers from Nokia, from LG, from Samsung, from Huawei, from whatever, right? And I pay them exactly like the other guys. Epsilon, I use a limit argument. I price my good epsilon below the other. Why? Because I'm more productive, so I have lower cost. I can do that. I can price below them. In fact, I can price a lot below them, but to get them out of the market in this model, which is using a underlying form of what? What kind of competition are people playing in this market? Bertrand, right? Then I wipe everybody out, and I become a monopolist. So my monopoly on the technology allows me to become a monopolist in the good market. See how it goes? It's crucial. Okay? Well, then I remain the blah, 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 blah. The rest is trivial. The key of the argument is here. You know, the descriptive, if you want, part, the positive theory is that. The rest it's algebra. It's actually pretty simple. Right? That's why I asked, if you have questions about the algebra is pretty simple, I think. So the thing we want to think is about the model, right? So let's look at the model, the underlying assumption, right? What are the underlying key assumptions? Let's see if we can, well, let's complete this. Today is terrible. We'll get something to clean. Otherwise I can't write anymore. I told them the other day, it says, do they ever clean the blackboard? So sure, every day. Look at that. 3 times a day, sure. Like this country. You understand that this country is going to hell because most of the average people are just not doing their job. The average guy is not doing his job. They're all doing something else. They're all the Prince of Monte Carlo. They're all getting a job because it's a salary. I don't have to do anything. I just get a salary. You call the secretary tells you, oh, please come soon because I have to leave. What do you mean I have to leave? I'm supposed to stay and work until 2. It's 12:30. Oh, but I have to leave. All right. So let's look at the last argument. So we have this. Then there is the argument of overcoming. Right, so how does it work? Right now there is me at T. I'm here, I'm a monopolist. I actually do not have a factory. I'm just earning a lot of profits per unit of time. What is there is under here? Under here, there is somebody, all the other guys, that are investing in research, right? They're investing, in fact, these resources, and then determines a certain probability of discovering. Eventually, one of them discovered. Why are they doing that? Because they're hoping to get pi t plus 1. Right? So that's a mechanism. There is every period, every innovation, there is a new monopolist. And by assumption, we'll see what the assumption is. Right? We talked about that the other week, that you asked me about the arrow argument. Okay? It's the Aragon argument at the extreme. Okay? it's by assumption not the current monopolist. So the profits, the extra rents here are by assumption evaporating every period. Innovation is redistributional from this point of view. It takes things, profit from one to the other to the other. Everybody has a chance, more or less. It's an incredibly mobile wealth distribution in this economy, right? The underdog is always becoming rich. One of the underdog will become rich, and for sure the rich guy will become poor in finite time, okay? The assumption is because they are not making anything to do innovation. Now think about it, let's start from there, because actually there is some interesting research. Actually there is in some sense a colleague of yours that has allowed himself being scooped for years. It was a student from Padua here, Roberto Piazza, who was a student at Minnesota back then, and I pushed him and he was doing research on this. Think why here the monopolist, this is something actually Avion and I would mention and then go passes quickly in their paper. Why the monopolist is not innovating.
So their argument is that the way of making the next innovation for them is actually VT plus 1 minus the value of the current innovation.
So that's the arrow.
And that's always less than what the underdog is doing.
That's arrow argument, right? On the other hand, what is that the new innovator is trying to do when doing R&D? It's trying to take over those profits, right? So those profits will end, right? And what is that it's using to do that? It's using a common resource, right? It's built in the model. I'm not saying it's realistic. I want to stick to the model. That assumption is in the model, so I'll take that assumption. We'll see if it has anything to do with what's going on out there or not, okay? But let's stick to the model. In the model, the innovator and the monopolist are both using the same resource. One to produce, the other to innovate, correct? What is that prevents the monopolist from stopping innovations forever by increasing the price of that common resource, the researcher, the skilled workers that they're both using? If you have read the paper carefully, you notice they actually mention it. Some referees suggest that there is a problem. Yes, there is. Well, it's hidden toward the end. I don't remember if in a footnote or something. The referee complained about that with the editor, but the editor says, well, you know, we can't ask them to give a whole discussion of that. But it is in there. Under certain parameters, the monopolists will find it advantageous to overhire the skilled workers in order to increase, right? When he's very patient and the arrival risk of the new technology is very high and the profit flow is very high, there's a combination of parameters for which it's convenient for the current monopolist to try to stay monopolist forever. And in order to try, the certainty of staying monopolist forever is not there. You cannot make sure you'll be monopolist forever, because given the structure of the arrival process, as long as there is positive probability of arrival, even at negligible effort in R&D, you know, there's always some possibility of being overtaken. But you can make that probability extremely small by just making R very costly. Right? I think, let me try to find for you where it is. I should have the paper somewhere here.
So actually, there's some I don't remember this point, but So I didn't get why it was really needed to have this distinction between. So probably that's why. Sorry. Probably that's why they needed this distinction between skilled and specialized.
Yes. Yeah. Section 7.
Okay.
You probably didn't get that far, huh?
Page?
Page 344 or 4. It's toward the end. I remember it was toward the end, in fact. It's called strategic monopsony effect. And those are all extensions, not very relevant. I mean, they're just show that, you know, you can make the model adding up a number of best. So that's one effort. Notice that